everybody, my name is Troy. Welcome back to my channel. And today I want to talk about 4 things, in my opinion, that Fantastic Four First Steps has to nail for it to be easily the best installment that we've seen on the silver screen so far. Now, this is the 3rd attempt that we've had at seeing Marvel's first family on the big screen. The first one came in the early or to mid 2000s with Chris Evans as Johnny Storm. Those films I thought did some things well, better than others. I think it did a good job of nailing the dynamics of the family and also kind of the charm of the characters interacting with each other. I thought it was a good cast. I thought they clicked very well. I think some of the villain moments were a little bit weaker. That's where we got the Galactus cloud that everyone likes to make fun of. And so that movie's, I think, was a little bit ahead of its time. I think if it was made a little bit later, I think visually would have looked a little bit better too. But overall, as someone who's a millennial, I think those movies will always have a special piece in my heart. So with the nostalgia, and I'm glad they were made, but I think ultimately not the best iteration of Marvel's first family. Do we even talk about the 2015 version? No, moving on. So again, these are 4 things, in my opinion, that would make this version of the Fantastic Four ones as us fans have been dying to see for so long. I think would satisfy a lot of people. The first one, in my opinion, is that Pedro Pascal needs to nail the role of Reed Richards. If I'm honest, this was the only casting of the 4 that we saw that I was a little bit uneasy about. Now, I was a big fan of John Krasinski. I had really enjoyed his cameo, Multiverse of Madness. I was part of the fan casting for that. And so I was hoping that he was going to get another opportunity, a better opportunity to work with this role, but nonetheless, they went with Pedro Pascal. And I don't blame them for going with Pedro. He's a really talented actor. We've seen a lot of range from him. I've loved him in The Last of Us. He's done a good job in that show, amongst other things that he's done in the last few years, The Mandalorian with Din Djarin. And so I understand why they cast him, because I think he does have the chops for it. But he desperately needs to nail this role. I think it's one of, if not his most important role that he's taken on. I think he really needs to embody Reed's brilliance, his genius, his role as a father, and also his obsessiveness too, how that drives him to obsess over solving a problem. And I think we need to see how that can burden him, how that can really burden him as a character, as a hero. And I think that's important for Pedro to nail in this version, because he's not always just the smartest guy in the room. He's somebody who is burdened by his intellect, burdened by his genius, and can be torn between doing what's right and saving his family. I mean, we've seen that play out in comics several times over the years. And so I think it's really important for Pedro to nail that. Pedro Pascal definitely has the range to nail Reed Richards' complexity. And I think if he does so, it could really define him as this character going forward and be his most important and best role that he's done so far in his career. The second thing that this movie needs to nail is Galactus. We've all been wanting Galactus forever. Even when they announced these Fantastic Four movies in the mid-2000s, the 2015 version, we as fans have wanted a proper introduction of the character Galactus. And it feels like, based off trailers, that we're finally going to get it. Galactus needs to be a true force of nature, so incredibly large in scale that it's difficult to comprehend. And I'm excited in some of the latest trailers that they seem to be teasing that a little bit, of just how massive he's going to be. And because that's who the character is. He's the devourer of worlds. He eats planets. And I think a lot of us think that this is how this movie's going to end, with him doing so. But we need to see a menacing, terrifying Galactus, something that we've wanted forever. And I think if they nail that, he could be one of the most iconic villains the MCU has ever tackled, right up there with Thanos himself. His motivations, his scale, his size, they need to remind us as to why this is so motivating for Reed to defeat him. And again, if they deliver that, upper echelon of villains for this character, and one I hope that they don't get rid of in this capacity. I think that there's a way to have this movie resolve, in fact, if they are victorious over Galactus, where he can hang around in this pocket of the Marvel Universe, because he is somebody who could be an important player going forward in what Marvel wants to do. The third thing that I think this movie needs to nail is the dynamics between the family, right? They are Marvel's first family for a reason, and we want to fall in love with these characters. Now, I think it's wise that they are having this be an established universe already. They've already been the Fantastic Four for a few years, so the dynamics should be there. The chemistry should be there. We should immediately be able to jump into a loving Reed Richards and Sue Storm relationship. We should be able to jump into immediately the kind of banter that we want from Johnny and Ben Grimm, right? We should be able to see that immediately on screen to make you just fall in love with this family and to fall in love with these characters in a way that any impending threat to them means something to us. And so I really want them to nail those dynamics between the characters, especially when you're introducing a character like Franklin Richards, who might have such a large importance on what happens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in coming years. I think if the chemistry between the cast does not land, it's going to be really difficult to relate to this movie. And so I think the pressure's on for them to deliver. Again, it feels like they're really delivering that on the trailers that we've gotten so far. But again, I want to see the larger scenes flesh out. I want to see the bonds be unbreakable. I desperately want to fall in love with this family and root for them so hard coming into this movie. And lastly, I think this movie needs to make us care about this universe. I think if we're honest and fair, one of the big criticisms of involving the multiverse saga has been the failure in some aspects for us to really, care about other universes. We're so used to the main universe, which they're calling the 616. We've seen other universes teased a little bit in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. We saw some of that teed up at the end of the Marvels with the X-Men in that post-credit scene. So I think that's something that it's really struggled to do, is get me to care about different universes that have been going on in the Marvel Universe. And so I think for this movie ultimately to land, it needs to allow us to feel like this universe needs to be protected. I want to care so much about it. Show me that it's worth saving. Show me that if Galactus is going to destroy this universe, that it's going to hurt. And that the only way that the Fantastic Four can survive this is by maybe leaving that universe and coming into the main 616. But I just want to care so much about a different part of the MCU, so much so that, there are real stakes involved here. That if the Fantastic Four aren't successful in saving their world, that it's going to hurt, it's going to hit emotionally, and really make us care about what happens to these people. I think the emotional investment has to go beyond some CGI destructions. Maybe there's some characters that we fall in love with on screen who aren't going to make it out because of the Fantastic Four's failures in defeating Galactus. But whatever it is, I just want to care a lot about a different place, to give the multiverse saga something strong to go into Avengers Doomsday, as I think there's going to be more world destruction at that point. And for those plot points to really land, we as the audience need to care a lot about what's going on, what places are being destructed, which ones are saved. And so I really hope the movie delivers on that front as well. If Fantastic Four First Steps delivers on those four things, I think it's going to be one of the best movies that they've done. It's interesting to see what level Superman has on the impact of this movie, because I love Superman. A lot of people did too, and how people's expectations change going into the Fantastic Four. I, for one, think it's only going to benefit. I think a lot of people are going to be more excited to see this after the success of Superman. I think people just desperately want good superhero movies again. And so if Fantastic Four First Steps can nail these four things, I think it's going to land on a lot of people's top 10s list of the MCU. But what do you guys think? Drop a comment down below letting me know what would make Fantastic Four First Steps a success in your opinion. What are you hoping to see? What are you hoping it accomplishes? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Leave a like as well. Subscribe for more content, guys. And let's get excited to see our first family on the big screen this week.